If I'm running something like a one-shot, or in the case of my island campaign that's only 10 sessions long, it's a bit more on rails, right? My one-shots are going to probably start in a place that I expect, and they're going to end in a place that I expect. The challenge is creating meaningful decisions within that. Do I prefer planned out world building for PCs to explore through, or a world built around PCs? If I had to pick, oof. If I had to pick, I would probably have to go with a planned out world. Like, if that's my forced choice, is it a planned out world, or is it a world that forms around the PCs? Only because a world that doesn't care about you feels more true. Like, the verisimilitudinous target is clearer there. That feels more true to life, that you've got these character backstories and they are your own, but the world doesn't adapt to that. Luckily, we don't have to choose. My preference is probably primarily a planned world, like the world that exists uncaring of the party, with a pretty heavy dose of their character's influence on the world. And that's for the same reason that when they venture out on the road to travel, interesting stuff is going to happen, even though what are the odds, right? If we actually have a world that people are traversing, traveling, odds are most of the time nothing would happen. Most of the time it wouldn't be crazy stuff, crazy interesting encounters. There wouldn't be coincidences. There wouldn't be all of these story hooks and little clues about future things and foreshadowing, and all of these interesting things wouldn't happen everywhere that they went. But that's, if that stuff doesn't happen, that's a level of world simulation that I'm not interested in. That's where we go beyond the verisimilitudinous and into like a simulator, and it's like, I don't really care about that. So the way that I usually approach that is to put together kind of a concept of the world and get sort of the players' buy-in to that first. And then I'm going to look for sort of that feedback from them via their character descriptions, character backgrounds. And then I'm going to look for, often it's not what am I going to change about the world, but what am I going to go into my world with a highlighter and pull out for their sake. And that feels true to a story that kind of is going to run alongside those characters, because that's the kind of stuff that they would pay attention to. That's the kind of stuff that they would engage with. So a good example is I started running recently a seafaring campaign, a little mini campaign. It's an island campaign, basically. And I knew that I wanted to have an island that sort of a story unfolds over maybe 10 sessions. And there would be pirates, and there would be locals to the island and things like that. And then I was like, okay, let's see what the party gives me. And they created their characters, and there was sort of this through line of magic and alchemy, and there's sort of an engineer in the group. And I was like, okay, I think I'm going to make that a central portion of this. Basically, that contributed to my larger story anyway, and just kind of gave me an extra sort of wrinkle to include in my campaign plans. Connor, you said emergent storytelling or fixed story / endpoint. It kind of depends. If I'm running something like a one-shot, or in the case of my island campaign that's only 10 sessions long, it's a bit more on rails, right? My one-shots are going to probably start in a place that I expect, and they're going to end in a place that I expect. The challenge is creating meaningful decisions within that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If I'm running a 10-session campaign, it's going to be a bit more flexible than that, but it still kind of has to, this island campaign doesn't take place on that island over there. It doesn't take place at sea. It doesn't take place in another place entirely. It takes place on this island. There's some controls in place that are hopefully narratively satisfying, but it's going to keep everything on track on that island. That's where the fun stuff is for this idea. If I have my way and I'm running a big, huge, expansive, I don't know how long it's going to run type of campaign, I'm cool with emergent. I'm game for that, and I'll adapt it probably every arc. I'm adapting the world and figuring things out as I go. Empress, you're a bit overwhelmed with having to world build everything, and I heard you could make a game around PCs and see what happens from there, have them shape the story of the world. Totally. Yeah, I mean, it's helpful to have something to, the characters kind of want something to ground them, something to place them in the world, but I think that it should, you want that back and forth, right? You want to try to develop a give and a take, and it's improvisation on a long timeline rather than short. You're not improvising a scene together, we're sort of improvising a story together. I don't have a lot of experience with this, but some people will even use, can't remember the names of them right now, but there are different sort of exercises you can run with your D&D group to sort of build a world together and sort of establish the history of a place as a session 0 or a session 1, and that's the world that you're going to play in. I think it can take a pretty decent amount of skill to make something super flexible, to make things modular, to create something that can be put together in multiple ways. That definitely takes some forethought. That said, you can also control that by just making sure that the scope of your project isn't something that is like so bespoke, right? If you're making a bunch of trees, you don't really have to worry about making it flexible. Even if you're making buildings, if you approach it from the perspective of, I don't really know what the buildings are, but I know I need a bunch of exteriors and maybe some ways to like stack them together, and I need a bunch of flexible roof pieces. Like, you can make things modular from the get-go. It really just depends on your approach. I still love the idea. There's a technique that a few people have done it out there, I think, before, of building. The premise is to build like a city or a town that fits inside of itself, and I love that idea. I just have never sat down to do it. But the idea is that you're building a sequence of buildings that can basically kind of collapse down into their own profile. So it's like one building in the Russian doll style. You take it apart, and the idea is that you can populate, a table with it. And I've always thought that was really neat, and I'd like to tackle that sometime.